They called a lawyer behind my back. They forged a doctor's note. And just like that, my own children had me declared legally incompetent. Took over my accounts, my home, everything I worked for. I was still grieving my husband's sudden death when they turned me into a prisoner in my own house. They said I was confused, unfit to live alone. No, I wasn't confused. I was betrayed. If you're a woman over 60 or someone trying to survive betrayal with grace, like, share, and subscribe. This story might just be yours too. Chapter 1. The Signature That Stole My Life. Hi, I'm Ruth Delaney. I'm 67 years old. And until last year, I thought I had a family. If you're a woman past 60, widowed, divorced, or just tired of being invisible, please like this video, share it, and subscribe to this channel. Because this story? It's for you. It's for every woman who gave her life to her family, only to become a burden once her usefulness ran dry. I didn't lose everything in one day. No, it happened slowly, quietly, like water leaking from a cracked pipe behind a wall. You don't see the damage at first. But then one morning, the floor caves in. My husband, Michael, died on a Thursday. A heart attack. No warning. No goodbye. I woke up and he didn't. Just like that, my partner of 40 years was gone. My sons, David and Mark, came over the next day. They hugged me, brought coffee, said all the right things. But looking back, their eyes were already scanning the house. You shouldn't be alone in this big place, Mom. We just want what's best for you. I believed them. Because I wanted to. But less than a month later, I started noticing small things. My jewelry box was lighter. The blue sapphire ring Michael gave me on our 25th anniversary? Gone. When I asked about it, Mark laughed and said, "You probably misplaced it again, Mom." Again? I asked. "Yeah," he said, exchanging a look with his wife. "You've been forgetting things lately, haven't you?" That sentence, it stuck to me like a thorn. I hadn't been forgetting things. I was grieving. That's different. But grief makes you doubt yourself. They started showing up more often, taking inventory, whispering in corners. Then one day, a woman with thick glasses came to the house. Said she was a home assessor. Said it was just a routine visit. She watched how I walked. Asked me who the president was. Asked me to draw a clock. I did. She nodded. Then she smiled in a way that made my skin crawl. 2 weeks later, David showed up with papers. "Just sign, Mom. It's just for safety. Just temporary. You'll still be in charge." But I wasn't. I signed, and just like that, I was declared legally incompetent. Without a court hearing. Without a second opinion. My son's lawyer, a neighbor's doctor, a notarized whisper, and I was stripped of my rights. The accounts? Frozen. Then emptied. My car? Sold. The house? Still in my name, but I wasn't allowed upstairs anymore. They moved me into the basement. Called it cozy. I had a twin mattress on a cement floor and a pull cord to the upstairs bell if I needed anything. I wasn't a mother anymore. I was a liability. They said I should be grateful. That they were taking care of me. But I knew what this was. They buried me while I was still breathing. And if you're still watching this, if your children treat you like a problem they regret creating, please stay with me. Because this story isn't just about what they did to me. It's about what I did next. And how one signature almost stole my life, but another one brought it all back. Chapter 2. The Basement Years. If you're still here, thank you. Not many people sit through stories like mine. Because it's easier to believe these things don't happen until they happen to you. If you're a woman over 60 who's ever felt erased, like your opinions no longer matter, like your very presence is a nuisance, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe. Because what I'm about to tell you next, it isn't just painful. It's humiliating. After they moved me into the basement, they started locking the upstairs door at night. For safety, Mark said. Sometimes you wonder, Mom. It's for your own good. I didn't wonder. I stood by that locked door and listened to them laughing in the kitchen, eating the food I bought, using the silverware passed down from my grandmother. My room, if you could call it that, smelled like mold. The dehumidifier was broken, and they never replaced it. I got sick twice. Once, I had a fever for 3 days. No one came down, not even to check. I heard their daughter, little Olivia, asking, "Why does Grandma live downstairs like a goblin?" Her mother, my daughter-in-law Claire, laughed and said, "Because she's not well, honey. She can't be around people right now." I sat on that mattress, clutching an old sweater, and cried silently. Not because of the insult, but because even the child had been taught to see me as less. They controlled everything. My clothes? Donated. They left me with 6 outfits. Simplicity is healing, Claire said. My phone? Replaced with a flip phone with no contacts. My mail? Filtered. I was 67 years old, fully conscious, aware, and functioning, but treated like a confused, dangerous invalid. I once tried to go outside without asking. Claire saw me from the upstairs window and shouted like I was stealing something. "What are you doing? You can't just wander off. What if you fall?" Fall? I walked 5 miles a day before Michael passed. I did yoga. I was still sharp. But grief had fogged me. And they used that fog as their opening. Then came the therapist. "We'd like you to talk to someone," David said. "Just to help you process things." A woman in her 30s came weekly. She asked me strange questions. "Do you hear voices? Do you remember what day it is? Have you ever thought of hurting yourself?" I answered calmly, repeatedly. I was rational, precise, but she never looked convinced. One day I said, "You're not here to help me. You're here to document that I'm crazy." She didn't deny it. She just scribbled harder. I started hiding a notebook under my mattress. I began documenting everything: what time they locked the doors, what food I was given, the visits, the insults. And then, I found it. In a box of old files Michael kept hidden behind the water heater. An envelope marked for Ruth if anything ever happens. Inside was a key and a notarized will. A separate will. One that transferred full ownership of a piece of land in Vermont, 6 acres, with a hidden cabin entirely to me. It had never been discussed. Never filed with the family lawyer. Michael had prepared it privately. Maybe he saw this coming. Maybe he didn't trust them either. I stared at that paper for hours. My hands trembled. Not from fear. From something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. That was the night everything changed. I stopped crying. I started planning. I was going to escape. And when I did, they'd have no idea what was coming. If you've ever been made to feel powerless, please keep watching. Because chapter by chapter, I'm going to show you how I went from their prisoner to their reckoning. Subscribe now because the best part is still coming. Chapter 3, I pretended to break so I could break free. They wanted a weak woman in the basement. So I gave them one. But behind those tired eyes, I was counting steps, measuring routines, memorizing locks. If you're a woman past 60 and you've ever had to fake being fine just to survive another day in someone else's house, please like, share, and subscribe. Because what you're about to hear, it's what they never expect from us. We're not fragile. We're patient. I started playing the role they handed me. The confused old woman. The one who forgets where she placed her glasses, who asks the same question twice, who nods slowly when spoken to. Claire began to relax around me. She left her phone on the counter. She even started talking on speaker in front of me as if I couldn't follow. One day, I overheard her say, "Yeah, we're selling the furniture room by room. Honestly, I think we'll put her in a home by March. That basement is starting to smell." They were going to put me in a nursing home. Strip me of the only roof I had left. And when they did, they'd sell the house. All of it. My life liquidated. Like I was inventory in an estate sale. I knew I had to act before that happened. So I made my first move. I faked a fall. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to make Claire panic when she found me on the cement floor, moaning softly. "Oh my God, David." She fell again. Again. That word again. They carried me to the couch upstairs and forgot to lock the basement door that night. I didn't run. I just took a walk to the hallway closet. Inside, I found my old purse. My ID was still inside. They'd missed it. Back in the basement, I used one of Olivia's old crayons to trace Michael's second will. I couldn't risk taking it out. It was my only leverage. I copied every detail. I wrote a letter and sealed it. Then I waited for the mailman. It took 5 days. I timed everything. At 11:12 a.m., Claire took her Pilates call in the backyard. The kitchen window was open. The mail truck slowed to a stop. I waved him down. He saw the fear in my eyes. I mouthed, "Please." He took the envelope, slid it in his bag. No words spoken, just a nod. Inside that envelope were copies of the will, a notarized note, and a request to send the documents to a lawyer my friend Carol had once recommended, years ago before I had even known I'd need her. 3 days later, I received a letter. I hid it under my pillow until night. When I opened it, it said only one thing: "I believe you. Come to me when you're ready. I'll make them pay." I hadn't smiled in months. That night, I grinned so hard it hurt. But there was still one thing left to do: get out. So I began gathering things quietly. A few bills Claire had left in the trash, those gave me the bank account numbers. I still had partial ownership of the house. She'd made the mistake of not removing my name entirely. And then came the fire. No, not flames. A burner Claire left on. A small kitchen towel too close. She put it out fast, but David screamed at her. I used their fight to slip upstairs. And that's when I did it. I took back the spare keys. And I walked out the front door for the first time in 4 months. Not a word. Not a glance back. They didn't even notice I was gone until morning. And by the time they did, I was already on a bus to Vermont. To the land Michael left me. To my miracle. To the beginning of the end of their power. If you've ever had to escape the very people who once kissed your forehead goodnight, then you know what this moment meant. Please subscribe, because from here on out, things only get louder. Chapter 4. The Cabin That Remembered Me. You never forget the first breath of freedom after you've been caged. The air smelled different. Not just cleaner. It smelled honest. If you're still with me, please like this story, share it with someone who needs strength, and subscribe. Because what I'm about to tell you next, it's not just about escape. It's about rebirth. And sometimes the woman they buried digs herself out stronger than they ever imagined. I arrived in Vermont with a duffel bag, a worn coat, and an envelope with Michael's name on it. I hadn't been to the cabin in decades. Michael used to take me there before the kids were born. Back when we thought life would always stay soft and simple. The land was hidden behind a row of pine trees, up a gravel path with no signpost. The key still worked. When the cabin door creaked open, I burst into tears. Dust blanketed every surface, but I could still smell him. The cedar drawers. The same brown plaid blanket folded over the rocking chair. A small photo of us on the windowsill, sunburned, laughing, in our 20s. They took everything from me, except this. I spent the first few days cleaning, scrubbing, chopping wood, cooking on the old iron stove. Every dish I washed felt like wiping the dirt off my own spirit. There was no Wi-Fi, no phone signal, just nature, solitude, and me. But there was also something else: paperwork. Michael had left a box beneath the floorboards, insurance policies, stock holdings, a second safe deposit box key, and a handwritten journal. That journal? It changed everything. "Ruth," he wrote, "if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and I suspect the kids have turned." I didn't want to believe it, but I've seen it in their eyes. Entitlement, not love. Claire's ambition runs cold. Protect yourself. This land is yours. The funds in the envelope will sustain you. And if they ever cross the line, take this to Carol. She'll know what to do. They think age makes you weak, but they've never seen you fight. I clutched that journal to my chest and sobbed like a woman who had just come back to life. Michael hadn't just left me a hiding place. He left me a weapon. I contacted Carol. She met me at a small diner 2 towns over. She hadn't aged a day, still wore her hair in a perfect bun, and spoke like a judge mid-sentence. After hearing everything, she said just 2 words, "Let's begin." She filed for an immediate injunction, cited medical fraud, abuse of power, misuse of guardianship. She already had copies of the will. We had paper trails. And best of all, the house was still partially mine. Legally, I could force a sale, or take them to court for asset misappropriation. "But what do you want?" she asked me. And I paused. I could have said revenge. I could have said justice. But I looked her in the eye and said, "I want them to see what happens when a woman they buried decides to rise." Carol smiled. "Then let's bury them with their own arrogance." I stayed at the cabin for 2 months, rebuilding my strength, learning to smile again, and waiting for the right moment. And when that moment came, it didn't come quietly. Because what David and Claire didn't know was that in the same week they tried to sell my wedding china, their accounts would be frozen. Their lawyer would back out, and the court would send them a letter that changed everything. If you've ever had your identity stolen, not your name, but your worth, please keep watching. Because Chapter 5? That's when the storm finally knocks on their door. Chapter 5. They thought I was dead, until the court said otherwise. You want to know what real satisfaction feels like? It's not yelling. It's not slamming doors. It's not getting even. It's watching someone who used you realize they're no longer in control. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if they pretended you didn't exist while living in your home, eating from your plate, please like, share, and subscribe. This part? It's for you. Because the moment they realized I was still legally alive was the moment their world began to crack. It started with a letter, sent by Carol, hand-delivered to their door. Claire signed for it, thinking it was another Amazon order. Inside, she found something far more expensive, a court summons. Filed under Ruth Delaney versus David and Claire Delaney motion to terminate guardianship and recover assets claim, medical fraud, elder abuse, identity suppression. Claire called David at work, screaming, "She's alive. She's not missing. She's suing us." By then, I was already back in town, staying quietly with Carol. No one knew. No one saw me. I was invisible, but this time, by choice. The first court hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. In that time, Carol froze every account they'd taken under the guardianship ruling. The checking account they used for home improvements? Locked. The line of credit Claire used for her boutique spa business? Gone. The money they took from selling my jewelry? No evidence. Claire tried to call me 17 times. I didn't pick up. I watched her voicemail transcription scroll across the burner phone Carol gave me. "Ruth, we can explain. You're confused. This isn't like you. Please, let's talk. Let's not ruin the family like this." Ruin the family? They locked me in a basement, stole my legacy, and treated me like a ghost. The family was already ruined. I was just finally telling the truth about it. The day of the hearing, I wore the emerald scarf Michael gave me on our last anniversary. My hair was brushed back. My posture was tall. My voice? Calm, clear, unshakable. When I walked into the courtroom, David blinked like he was seeing a ghost. Claire clutched her pearls. The judge looked at me, then at the paperwork. "Mrs. Delaney, you've been evaluated by 2 independent doctors. Neither found signs of cognitive decline. Why were you placed under guardianship?" I looked directly at my son. My voice didn't shake. Because I was grieving. And they saw that as weakness. The judge nodded slowly. And the documents presented to justify the guardianship were signed by a physician under investigation for falsifying reports. Interesting. Claire's face went white. I continued. They emptied my accounts, took my possessions, locked me away like a secret. Not because I was ill, but because I wasn't convenient. David interrupted. "She's exaggerating." The judge silenced him. That day, the guardianship was terminated. My rights? Restored. My assets? Under protection of the court, pending investigation. The house? Mine to reclaim or liquidate. When we walked out, Claire followed me into the hallway. Ruth, please, we didn't mean to hurt you. I turned. For the first time in months, I looked her dead in the eye. You didn't hurt me. You tried to erase me. And now? You get to watch what happens when the erased woman writes her own ending. That night, I lit a candle in Michael's memory and sat in the quiet. I wasn't just back. I was rising. If you've ever been discarded, but refused to stay broken, this is your story too. Please subscribe. Because Chapter 6? That's when I stop surviving and start reclaiming. Chapter 6. I opened the front door, and they were still living there. There's a strange silence that follows a legal victory. You expect fireworks, apologies, maybe even closure. But sometimes all you get is your name back. And if you're over 60 and you've ever had to fight just to prove you're still capable of living, please like, share, and subscribe. This next chapter? It's what every discarded woman dreams of. Walking back into the house they said you didn't belong in. After the court ruling, I had full rights to my home again. But Claire and David were still living there. Squatting, really. No longer protected by guardianship. Just lingering like the mold they ignored in the basement. Carol advised me to file for eviction. I didn't. Not yet. Because I wanted something first. Their discomfort. I walked up to my front door in broad daylight. Key in hand. Shoulders back. And I let myself in. Claire was in the living room, scrolling through her phone on the same velvet couch she once told me was too fragile for older people. She looked up and froze. I didn't say a word. I just walked past her and into the kitchen, opened the fridge, and poured myself a glass of orange juice. The same brand I used to buy. Ruth, what are you doing here? I live here, I said. Calm. Measured. True. David came downstairs, hair a mess, tie crooked. His eyes were hollow. We didn't think you'd want to come back. We thought you'd stay in Vermont. Did you think I'd let you keep everything? I asked. After locking me in a basement like an unwanted pet? Silence. They had no answers. Only fear. And I was done feeding them clarity. That night, I slept in my old bedroom. Same mattress. Same ceiling crack I used to stare at when Michael snored too loud. Only this time, I slept with the door unlocked. And I heard them pacing outside. Whispering. Arguing. They didn't know what I'd do next. Would I throw them out tomorrow? Would I call the police? Would I demand repayment? What I did was worse. I invited people over. My old friends. Women from the community. Other widows. Quiet, overlooked women just like me, who'd been cast aside by their own children. We gathered in my living room. Drank coffee from my china. Laughed. Exchanged stories. Claire came in once, confused. Saw us sitting there and blinked like she'd walked into someone else's house. Because she had. This wasn't hers anymore. This was mine again. Then I started renovating. I called in contractors. Told them to tear up the back patio and build a greenhouse. The money came from my reclaimed investments. Legal. Clean. Powerful. I turned the guest bedroom into an art studio. I hosted workshops, a revival for women over 60. By week 3, 20 women were attending. David and Claire? Forced to listen to our laughter from upstairs. They knew their time was up. But before I made my next move, I wanted them to feel what I'd felt. Not pain. Invisibility. The day I posted the eviction notice, I didn't even hand it to them. I taped it to the refrigerator. Claire screamed. David cursed. I just turned the page of my book. 60 days, I said calmly. Unless you'd like to pay rent. Which I've priced fairly. For strangers. If you've ever been told you're too old to start over, I need you to hear me clearly. They said the same about me. And now they're asking if they can stay. Please like, share, and subscribe. Because Chapter 7? That's when they get desperate. And desperation always shows the truth. Chapter 7. The day they knocked on my door like strangers, there's a certain kind of silence that falls when power shifts. Not loud. Not fast. But slow. Uncomfortable. Heavy. It sounds like your children knocking on your door, even though they used to walk in without asking. If you've ever had to pretend everything was fine just to keep peace in your own home, please like this story, share it, and subscribe. Because what happened next? It wasn't vengeance. It was balance being restored. It had been 3 weeks since I posted the eviction notice. David and Claire tried to act unfazed, but their energy changed. Claire stopped holding her head high. David barely spoke. Their laughter gone. Their confidence crumbled. They tried to rally sympathy. You're our mother. You're overreacting. Can't we talk about this like family? I reminded them I tried that once. They locked a door in my face. Then came the second collapse. Claire's boutique spa was being sued by a former employee. Something about wage theft and falsified schedules. And David? Fired. Apparently, his firm didn't appreciate being tied to an elder abuse case. Their credit cards declined one by one. The utilities went unpaid. And finally, the knock came not at my bedroom, but at my door. Like they didn't even live here. I opened it slowly. They stood outside with eyes sunken and backs hunched like stray dogs in winter. We're sorry, David said. We didn't mean to let things go this far. Claire tried to smile. Maybe we could stay. Just until things settle. We'll pay rent, Ruth. We'll be different. Different? I stared at the woman who once brought me toast on a paper plate like I was a hospice patient. At the son who took my name off the mailbox. And I said, different would have been not stealing from me while I was grieving. Different would have been knocking before you destroyed my life. Claire's lips trembled. We have nowhere else to go. I didn't either, I replied. But you were fine putting me in a facility, weren't you? Or was that different because you needed my money then? I let them in. Not into my home. Into the living room. 1 seat each. I gave them tea. No sugar. And I watched them sweat. Then I slid 2 papers across the coffee table. 1, a rental agreement, $2, $500/month. Utilities not included. 2, a full confession. To be notarized. Admitting what they did. For the court. For the record. They looked at each other, stunned. You want us to sign this? Claire said, voice shaking. Or leave, I answered. But you're a mother. And you're grown adults, I said. You made your choices. Now live with them. They signed. Because desperation makes cowards brave, until they run out of breath. And after that, they became tenants in my home. Silent. Respectful. Smaller. If you've ever fantasized about taking back your life, not in a scream, but in a whisper loud enough to shake the ground, keep listening. Because in Chapter 8, I stop living like a survivor. I start living like a woman who owns everything they said she'd never reclaim. Please like, share, and subscribe, especially if they ever made you feel like your life was over. Because mine was just beginning. Chapter 8. They watched me bloom from the same window they used to lock. There's nothing louder than quiet confidence. Not rage. Not revenge. Just the stillness of a woman who finally knows her worth and dares to live it in full view of those who tried to erase her. Asterisk, if you've ever looked in the mirror after 60 and wondered if you're still allowed to dream, please like this story. Share it with another sister, and subscribe. Because what comes next? It's not just mine. It could be yours too. The house I was once trapped in became my studio. My greenhouse out back? Flourishing. I planted tomatoes, basil, marigolds, and moonflowers. The same ones Michael and I used to tend when we were newlyweds with nothing but time. Each bloom was a rebellion. Each leaf, a declaration. I am still growing. Inside, I converted the old dining room into a sanctuary for women like me. It started small. 3 women from the community. Then 5. Then 10. Widows. Divorcees. Abandoned mothers. Women who'd been told by their children, their churches, or their communities that their usefulness had expired. We sat in a circle every Sunday with warm tea and no judgment. I called it the Second Bloom Circle. And I made one rule. No one here is old. We are rooted. Claire and David? Still upstairs. Silent. Tense. Every time they passed the staircase and saw the lights glowing below, they looked like ghosts in someone else's house. Because that's exactly what they were now. Claire tried once to come down. She saw the women laughing, painting, writing poetry. Her lips twitched. A trace of confusion or envy. She said, "I didn't know you could draw." I looked up from my canvas and said, calmly, "You never asked." By month 3, I had over 100 followers online. Women messaging me from all over Florida, Nebraska, Morocco. They said, "I'm 68 and haven't smiled in years. My daughter took everything and left me in a trailer park." They said I was confused when I was just tired. And I told them the truth. We are not confused. We are not useless. We are not done. I started a YouTube channel. Told my story the way I'm telling you now. Raw. Real. From the floor I once cried on. The videos went viral. So did the message. Claire knocked on my door one evening, asked if she could join the Sunday circle. I looked at her, and I remembered the meals she tossed in front of me like I was a burden. The basement light she turned off as she walked away. "The circle is open to those who've been broken," I said. "Not to those who did the breaking." She didn't respond, just nodded, and walked away. If you've ever risen from ashes while the ones who lit the fire watched you fly, then you know what this moment feels like. Please like this story, share it with someone who needs to believe again, and subscribe. Because chapter 9? That's when the past comes knocking again, and this time, I answer on my terms. Chapter 9. The letter from the man who left me first. I thought the worst pain in my life came from my children. I was wrong. Because before they tried to erase me, there was someone else who abandoned me without ever leaving the room. If you've ever carried a wound from the one you loved most, the one who promised to stay and slowly vanished inside your silence, then like, share, and subscribe. Because what I found in that envelope shook a part of me I thought had already died. It came on a Thursday. A simple manila envelope. No return address. Just my name and handwriting I hadn't seen in years. My breath caught before I even opened it, because deep down, I knew. Michael, my late husband, the man who protected me in death, but who, in the final years of his life, disappeared inside the very house we built. I opened the letter with trembling hands. Ruth, if you're reading this, then the worst has happened. Either I'm gone, or I didn't find the courage to say this to your face. I saw what was happening to you. I saw how the kids were beginning to shift. I heard the way Claire spoke to you when she thought I wasn't listening. And I failed you. Not because I didn't love you, but because I got tired. I didn't want to believe what was happening. I didn't want to fight them. And that cowardice is my greatest shame. So I'm doing now what I didn't do then, fighting for you in the only way I still can. I left the cabin in your name. I protected it quietly. I didn't trust them. But I trust you. You always had more fire than I did. I hope you burn brighter than they can ever dim. Forgive me, Ruth. I should have stood beside you, even in silence. I read the letter 3 times. The tears didn't come like before. They didn't burn. They rolled down slow, soft, gentle, not grief, release. Because part of me had been holding a secret resentment for years. Michael wasn't cruel, but he grew distant, quiet, passive. The kind of absence that doesn't come with a door slam, it comes with silence during dinner, with missed glances, with letting others speak over me and saying nothing. But now I knew the truth. He had seen me. He just didn't know how to stand with me in life. So he did it in death. With a letter. With a will. With a second chance. I took that letter to the garden. Read it aloud beside the moonflowers. I whispered, I forgive you. Not because he was perfect, but because I needed to be free of that ache, too. That night, I slept with the window open. For the first time in years. No ghosts. No regrets. Only peace. If you've ever carried invisible scars from the people who didn't protect you when it mattered, I hope you give yourself permission to heal. Please like this video, share it with someone carrying silent grief, and subscribe. Because chapter 10? That's when I make a decision that shocks even myself and sets my children up for a lesson they'll never forget. Chapter 10. The house was never the legacy. Everyone thought the house was the prize. The children. The neighbors. Even the courts. But they were wrong. The legacy I'm leaving isn't walls or windows. It's a message. And by the time I made my final choice, it was too late for them to stop me. If you've ever been told you should be grateful for scraps, if you've ever been expected to disappear quietly after 60, please like this story, share it with another warrior, and subscribe. Because what I did next, it rewrote everything. I sat in the same kitchen chair they once refused to let me use, drank from the mug that used to sit dusty in the basement, and I stared at the house. Every corner held memories. But not all memories are sacred. Some are scars. Some are cages. That night, I called Carol. I want to sell the house, I told her. Silence. Then, are you sure? You fought to take it back. Yes, I said. But now I know it's not where I want to stay. It's just where I needed to wake up. She didn't argue. She knew. When I told Claire and David the house was being listed in 60 days, their jaws dropped. Where will we go? David asked. We thought you'd let us stay. You thought wrong, I said. Calm, like I was reciting the weather. Claire fumbled. But, the garden, the rooms, all your friends. You built this into something. I did, I said. And now I'll do it somewhere else. I've done the impossible once. I can do it again. I listed the house. The offers came fast. Apparently, it was in a hot neighborhood. Funny, no one said that when I was locked in the basement. I accepted an offer from a woman named Rosalind. Single, 65, former librarian. Starting over after a divorce. When she walked in, she touched the banister and said, I've never felt ownership before. Always felt like I was just passing through someone else's life. And I smiled. You're not passing through anymore, I said. You're planting. With the sale complete, I gave Claire and David their notice. No second chances. They left quietly. No tears. No drama. Just quiet shame that clung to their shoes like wet cement. I didn't offer to help. They never did when I was on that basement mattress. Then I moved. Not far. Just enough to begin again. A 2-bedroom cottage near a women's retreat center. I bought it outright. Started teaching weekly workshops. Power after 60. I now have over 20,000 subscribers on my channel. Messages from women who said my story stopped them from ending their lives. From sleeping in cars. From giving up. Because what I've learned is this. The house wasn't the legacy. The voice is. And mine? Is finally loud enough to echo. If you're watching this and you're over 60 and you think it's too late to reclaim your story, I'm Ruth Delaney. And I promise you, it's not. Please like, share, and subscribe. Because in Chapter 11, I return to the place it all began. But this time, not as a victim. This time, as a guest of honor. Chapter 11, they invited me back, but not out of love sometimes. They don't come back because they love you. They come back because they need you. And when they do, the choice isn't whether you forgive them. The choice is whether you still let them sit at your table. If you've ever been asked to smile through betrayal, please like, share, and subscribe. Because what happened next? It was the final test. And this time, I passed with my head high. The invitation came in a cream-colored envelope with gold trim. It was Olivia's wedding. My granddaughter. The same child who once asked if I lived in the basement because I was scary. Inside the invitation was a handwritten note. Grandma Ruth, I don't know everything that happened, but I know I want you there. I've missed you. That note? It made me cry. Not because it healed everything, but because it was the first honest sentence I'd read from that family in years. Still, I wasn't naive. I knew the real reason Claire and David were suddenly fine with my presence. Image. Weddings are expensive. Guests talk. The missing grandmother would raise questions. And after all, I was now the woman with the YouTube channel, the best-selling self-published memoir, and a following of thousands. They didn't want me back. They wanted my approval. But I accepted. Not to play along, but to show up on my own terms. I arrived in a deep navy gown, hair pinned up, shoulders squared, confidence pouring out of me like perfume. I walked in alone, and the whispers began. Is that Ruth Delaney? I heard she wrote that viral story about elder abuse. She looks amazing for her age. Claire spotted me from across the ballroom. Her smile was thin, performed. I returned it with a nod, cool and distant. Not rude, not bitter. Just done. When Olivia saw me, she ran into my arms. Grandma, she whispered. I'm so sorry I didn't come visit. I didn't know everything, but I know you didn't deserve it. I kissed her forehead. You were just a child, I said. And now you're a woman who gets to decide what kind of family she builds next. That was all I needed to say. At dinner, they seated me near David. He leaned in. Thank you for coming. It means a lot. I met his eyes. Calm. Steady. You don't need to thank me. I'm here for her. Not for apologies that only come when you're broke. He nodded, said nothing more, because there was nothing left to say. I gave my toast when asked. Not long, not grand, just truth. To Olivia, I said, holding my glass. May you never take for granted the hands that fed you, or the eyes that stayed open when everyone else looked away. May you build something sacred and never forget the roots that made you. Silence. Then applause. But only one tear slipped down Claire's face. And I didn't offer her a napkin. If you've ever been asked to show up somewhere you were once pushed out of, just to make someone else feel better, then know this. You don't owe anyone your silence, your softness, or your smile. You owe yourself your peace. Please like this story, share it with someone still finding their voice, and subscribe. Because in Chapter 12, I get an unexpected visitor. And this time, it's not family. It's someone who wants to learn how I survived and how to start again. Chapter 12, she found me the way I once needed to find someone you never know who's watching. Not everyone likes your posts. Not everyone comments. But some people are holding on to your words like a lifeline. And when they finally knock on your door, they're not coming for advice. They're coming to breathe. If you've ever found strength in someone else's story, please like this one, share it with someone in need, and subscribe. Because what happened next reminded me why I survived. Her name was Angela, 56, a former nurse. I found her sitting on my porch one morning, hands folded, eyes swollen, wearing the same kind of silence I used to carry. I didn't ask how she got my address. I already knew. It was all online now. The channel, the blog, the community. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't know where else to go. I brought her inside, poured her tea, lit a candle, waited. That's all it takes sometimes. And then the truth spilled out like rain from a cracked roof. Her husband had divorced her 2 years ago, left her for a 29-year-old he met in a patient's family lounge. Angela gave up her career early to raise their children. Now, she lived in her sister's laundry room. She said her kids don't return her calls. Said her daughter told her, "You're just not inspiring anymore." That sentence broke her more than the divorce. I'm not angry, she said. I'm just invisible. And I looked at her with all the weight of someone who knows. Angela, you're not invisible. You're just out of view. And sometimes the only way to be seen again is to build a light so bright they can't ignore you. She blinked back tears. But I don't know how to start over. I reached across the table. You don't. You start from where you are. You don't owe anyone a polished version of you. You owe yourself permission. I let her stay with me for a while, just until she could breathe again. I taught her how to upload her first video. Told her not to worry about the camera angle or makeup. Just speak. There's a woman out there waiting to hear her own story through your voice. And when she did, it got 30 views, then 300, then 3,000. Angela now runs her own channel, Nurse After Numbness. She teaches women how to care for their hearts the way they once cared for patients and husbands and homes. She's no longer sleeping on her sister's floor. She's speaking on panels. She's smiling with her teeth. She's blooming. And me? I just keep opening the door. Because I know the ache of silence. And the power of being the person I once needed to meet. If you've ever wondered if your pain could be turned into purpose, please remember Angela. Remember me. Remember yourself. Like this story, share it with a sister still surviving, and subscribe. Because in Chapter 13, something happens that makes me question everything I've built and forces me to defend it. Chapter 13. They didn't like my voice when it got too loud. The truth makes some people nervous. Especially the ones who were comfortable with your silence. They'll smile when you whisper. But when your voice fills a room, they start calling it slander. If you've ever had someone try to take back the power you earned, just because they couldn't control it anymore, like, share, and subscribe. Because what happened next proved they weren't done trying to shut me down. It came in a sleek white envelope. One of those expensive-looking ones that say, "We can afford to scare you." Inside, a cease and desist letter. From Claire. Not through David. Not through a family conversation. But from her lawyer. Claiming that my online videos and published memoir contained defamatory material and false allegations that harmed her professional reputation. Funny, her professional reputation didn't mind locking an elderly woman in a basement. But apparently, the truth made her feel unsafe. I sat in my reading chair with the letter in one hand and a mug of chamomile in the other. I didn't shake. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. Because this time, I wasn't trapped. I was documented. Every claim I'd made had been backed by court filings, medical evaluations, and a notarized confession Claire herself signed, back when she thought I'd offer mercy. I called Carol. She read the letter in silence. Then she chuckled. "They're not suing you, Ruth. They're warning you." Should I stop? I asked. "Absolutely not," she said. "You're not the one who should be scared." But it shook something in me. Not fear. Something older. Something that whispered, "See? You're still not safe. Still not allowed to speak." I almost didn't record that week's video. Almost. But then I remembered Angela. And all the women who sent messages like, "Your story helped me leave. Your voice made me believe I wasn't crazy. I finally confronted my daughter after watching your series. And I hit record. Not to rage. To remember. To resist. To the ones who say I'm making this up, thank you. Because every time you try to silence a woman who lived through hell, you only confirm the truth. You didn't break me when I had nothing. You sure won't break me now that I've got a voice. That video got over 200,000 views in 3 days. Claire sent no second letter. But her silence this time? It wasn't comfortable. It was terrified. If someone's ever tried to scare you into silence, remember, silence isn't strength. It's what they depend on. Please like this video, share it with someone trying to find the courage to speak, and subscribe. Because in Chapter 14, something unexpected happens. I get an award. And suddenly, the woman who lived in a basement is standing on a stage, telling the world exactly how she rose. Chapter 14. From basement to ballroom, I used to whisper into the darkness, praying someone might hear me. Now, I stand under lights, holding a microphone, and speak to rooms full of women who finally feel seen. If you've ever dreamed of turning your pain into purpose, like this story, share it with someone who still thinks it's too late, and subscribe. Because what happened next was the moment I realized I was never just anything ever again. The invitation came through email. Subject line, "Honoring Courage After 60." Sent by the National Council for Women's Independence and Recovery. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Surely this was meant for someone else. Someone. Polished. Famous. The kind of woman who wore heels and spoke in sound bites. But the email was addressed to me, clearly. "Dear Ruth Delaney, your story has become a symbol of strength and survival for women across the country. We would be honored to present you with the Resilience in Action Award at this year's gala." I stared at the screen for a full 5 minutes. Then I wept. Not because I wanted attention, But because I never thought anyone would care. They once locked me in a basement. Now they were asking me to stand under a chandelier and speak. I bought a dark green gown. The same color Michael once said made my eyes look like spring. Angela helped me get ready. Did my hair. Fixed my makeup. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see Grandma Ruth. I didn't see the lady who was declared incompetent. I saw me. Reclaimed. Rebuilt. Unapologetically here. The ballroom was packed. White tablecloths. Glittering glassware. A string quartet played softly in the corner. I sat at a table with survivors. Women who had left abusive marriages after 40 years. Women who started businesses after 65. Women who'd gone from homeless shelters to Harvard classrooms. And then, they called my name. Please welcome Ruth Delaney, writer, speaker, survivor, and voice for every woman who's ever been made to feel disposable. The applause was thunderous. But I wasn't shaking, because I'd already survived the silence. This was just a louder version of truth. I stood at the microphone, looked out into the sea of faces, and I said, I was once locked in the basement of my own home, told I was too old, too fragile, too confused to be useful. But I wasn't confused. I was grieving. And I wasn't fragile. I was quiet. There's a difference. And when I finally spoke, I didn't scream. I told the truth. I told my story. And if they called it ugly or inconvenient, so be it. Because silence is where abuse survives. But stories? That's where women survive each other. The room stood. Women cried. Some shouted, yes, out loud. It wasn't just applause. It was recognition. That night, I didn't just win an award. I won something bigger. Validation. Not from institutions. From women. Women who saw themselves in me. And who would now carry my story forward to light their own path. If you've ever feared your voice was too late, too small, or too old to matter, I'm here to prove otherwise. Please like this video, share it with someone who needs to see themselves again, and subscribe. Because in Chapter 15, someone unexpected watches that speech. And the ripple effect? Changes a life I thought I'd lost forever. Chapter 15. The message that stopped me in my tracks. I thought I had made peace with the people who vanished. Not the ones who betrayed me, the ones who just disappeared. Sometimes silence feels like betrayal too. And when they finally reach back out, it hits differently. If you've ever waited for someone to say, I should have reached out, please like this story, share it with a sister still healing, and subscribe. Because what I received next shook me in a way no courtroom or speech ever could. It was a message request on my channel's community inbox, buried under dozens of congratulations and messages from strangers. The names stopped me cold. Emily Delaney, my granddaughter, David's oldest child. She hadn't spoken to me in over 6 years. Last I heard, she moved to Portland, cut off from the family drama, started working at a nonprofit, never even came home for the holidays. I opened the message with trembling hands. Grandma Ruth, I just watched your acceptance speech, and I cried through the whole thing. I was 15 when Dad moved you into the basement. I didn't understand it then. I just thought that was normal. That it was what people did with grandparents who needed help. But I know now. I know what they did was wrong. And I should have reached out to you years ago. But I was ashamed. I thought maybe you wouldn't want to hear from me. But now, I just want to say I see you. I believe you. And if you'll have me, I'd love to visit sometime. I want to know you again. I reread it 3 times. The tears didn't sting. They soothed. Like aloe on a scar that had been itching for years. Because for all my strength, all my speeches, all my growth, there was a quiet ache I never voiced. I missed her. I missed my granddaughter. The one who used to braid my hair and fall asleep in my lap during Christmas movies. I replied simply, Emily, I never stopped loving you. I never stopped hoping. And I would love nothing more than to see you again. Let's start new. No shame. Just truth. She responded within 10 minutes. I'm flying home next weekend. Can I take you to lunch? When we met at the small cafe by the lake, she looked older, wiser, nothing like the teenager I remembered. She hugged me tight, held on longer than I expected. And when we sat down, she said, "I've watched every chapter, every story. You're the bravest person I know." I reached across the table and said, "No, sweetheart. I'm just the one who finally stopped apologizing." We spent hours talking, not about what was lost, but what could still be built. She told me she distanced herself from David and Claire years ago. Couldn't tolerate the way they spun narratives. She told me she admired what I'd become. And, for the first time, I didn't just feel like someone's grandmother. I felt like someone's hero. If you've ever wondered if speaking your truth would push people away, sometimes it pulls the right ones closer. Asterisk, please like this video, share it with someone longing to reconnect, and subscribe. Because in Chapter 16, Emily brings me a proposal. And what we build next turns healing into legacy. Chapter 16, she asked me to build something with her. It's one thing to survive, another to thrive. But the rarest kind of power is when you use your healing to help someone else bloom beside you. Asterisk, if you've ever dreamed of turning pain into purpose, please like this story, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe. Because what my granddaughter asked me next brought me full circle. Emily came over again the next afternoon. We walked in the garden. She helped me prune the moonflowers. She asked questions not just about the old days, but about me, my favorite colors, my dreams before I became a wife and mother. No one had asked me that in decades. After tea, she pulled out a small leather-bound notebook. "I've been working on something," she said, "and I wanted to show you first." Inside were pages of notes, diagrams, names, titles. At the top, Project Reclaim, a community platform for women over 55. Workshops, counseling, video lessons, a speaker series, a space for women like me, like her future self, to share, learn, rebuild. I looked up, stunned. "Emily, this is incredible. But why me?" She smiled. "Because Grandma, you are the blueprint. You didn't just survive what they did. You rebuilt a life with grace and fire. And I want to help other women do the same with you." I didn't answer right away. I just sat there, looking at her. The child I once sang lullabies to was now asking to build a movement with me. And not because I begged for it. Because she believed in it. What would I even do? I asked, hesitant. "Everything you already do," she said. "Only louder. And with support. We can bring in speakers, therapists, writers. Host retreats. Give grants to women who've been displaced. You don't need to be anything other than who you are." Tears welled in my eyes. "You're not doing this to make up for them, are you?" "No," she said softly. "I'm doing this to stand with you. Not for them. For us." That night, I opened Michael's old journal again. Read his words in the quiet. They think age makes you weak. But they've never seen you fight. And I whispered to the stars, they have now. We launched the project 6 weeks later. Called it the Second Bloom Foundation. First event? A community storytelling night. 30 women. 1 microphone. 1,000 years of silence, finally broken open. Emily stood beside me on that small stage. Introduced me as the co-founder. The woman who reminded us all that growing old is not the same as going quiet. If you've ever believed your story was too small to matter, please hear me. You're not behind. You're just beginning. Like this video, share it with someone starting over, and subscribe. Because in Chapter 17, our project gets noticed by someone powerful. And what they offer could change everything. Chapter 17. The email that could change everything. I never set out to be seen. I just didn't want to disappear. But sometimes, when you start speaking for yourself, others realize you've been speaking for them too. If you've ever felt like your story was too ordinary to matter, please like this one, share it with a sister still searching, and subscribe. Because what happened next brought our small, tender mission to the national stage. It was a rainy Tuesday. I was prepping for our next second bloom circle, setting out mismatched mugs and cinnamon tea. Emily was upstairs, editing our latest video. Then I heard her gasp. "Grandma, come here." She spun her laptop toward me. Subject line: Open mailbox with raised flag collaboration inquiry. Oprah Network. I stared at the screen. Blinked. Looked again. "Is this real?" I whispered. She clicked. We read together. "Dear Ruth and Emily, our team has been following the Second Bloom Foundation and Ruth's incredible journey. We believe her voice embodies the strength, honesty, and resilience our platform is built on. We'd like to formally invite Ruth Delaney to appear as a featured guest in our upcoming special, Voices We Missed. Additionally, we're exploring documentary partnerships, and Ruth's story could anchor one of our first episodes. Please let us know if she's open to a meeting. Warmly, Senior Producer, OWN Network." I covered my mouth. "I don't think I can do this," I said, eyes wide. "A camera crew? Interviews? My story on TV?" Emily leaned forward. "You've already told the world, Grandma. This just makes the world a little bigger." The next few days were a blur. Zoom meetings, calls, paperwork. They wanted a full segment, interviews, footage from the workshops, a spotlight on our circle. Not a sob story. A survivor's rise. The first day of filming, I sat in front of a velvet-backed chair, lights warming my face. A producer asked me, "What do you want women to know when they hear your story?" I paused, let the silence settle, then said that it's not too late. Not too late to speak. Not too late to start. Not too late to stop being the background character in your own life. And that if someone ever locked you away, emotionally, physically, spiritually, just know, the door opens inward. After the crew left, I sat outside on the porch. Emily brought me tea. We didn't speak for a while. Just listened to the breeze and the distant chirp of birds returning from winter. Then she said, "You know what the best part is?" "What?" I asked. "They didn't make you famous. You did that by being real. If you've ever doubted your ability to inspire, please hear me now. Your scars are sacred. Your story matters. You are the voice someone else is waiting to hear. Please like this story, share it with someone who needs to feel seen, and subscribe. Because in Chapter 18, someone from the past tries to re-enter my life, and not everyone deserves a second invitation." Chapter 18. He said he regretted everything, but I remembered everything. It's easy to forgive someone from a distance. But what do you do when they show up again? And ask to sit at the table you built from the very rubble they left you in? If you've ever had someone reappear not with love, but with guilt, please like this story. Share it with someone who's struggling to say no, and subscribe. Because what happened next reminded me, closure isn't something they give you, it's something you decide. He showed up in a blue button-down shirt. Hair grayer. Face thinner. But the eyes? Still that same soft shade of apology without action. David. My son. I hadn't seen him in person since the eviction notice. I was watering the garden when I heard his voice behind me. "Mom?" I turned slowly, not shocked, just ready. He held a manila envelope in one hand, his keys in the other. I saw the documentary. The award. The foundation. I didn't know it was that real, that deep. I didn't respond. He continued. I was wrong. About everything. Claire and I, we ruined what we didn't even understand. And now she's gone. Took a job out of state. Olivia barely talks to me. And Emily, well, I saw your speech. You two look happy. I kept watering. He finally asked, "Is there any room left for me in your life?" I lowered the watering can. David, when you were little and broke a vase, you'd apologize, but only after stepping over the pieces for days. You never helped me clean it up. He said nothing. I don't need another sorry. I don't need you to feel guilt. I needed a son when I was on that basement floor. And you gave me a signature instead. Now I have peace. I have purpose. And I have people. So let me ask you something. Why are you really here? He hesitated. And then he said the one thing I was expecting all along. I need help. financial help. Just enough to get through the next few months. I thought, maybe the woman you broke would still care enough to fix you. I stepped forward. Calm. Strong. David, I do care. But I care too much to let you borrow the strength I fought tooth and nail to build when you refuse to lift a finger for mine. I hope you find healing. But not from me. Not this time. He left. Didn't slam the door. Didn't yell. He just left. And for the first time, it didn't leave me aching. It left me lighter. Because forgiving someone doesn't mean you give them keys. Sometimes it just means you stop letting them live rent-free in your soul. If you've ever felt torn between your heart and your healing, remember, love can be honest. And honesty can say no. Please like this story, share it with someone still being guilted into silence, and subscribe. Because in Chapter 19, I speak at my first national summit and share the one thing I've never said out loud. Not even to Emily. Chapter 19. The truth I buried even from myself. I had spoken on panels, in interviews, on stages across the country. Told my story 100 different ways. But there was one part one always left out. One truth I never gave words to because saying it meant claiming it. If you've ever held on to a secret so long it became part of your posture, please like this story, share it with a soul who needs permission to speak, and subscribe. Because what I said next set me free too. The summit was in Chicago. 400 women in the audience. Cameras rolling. Live streams across multiple states. The theme was Voices Reclaimed, Women Who Refuse to Be Erased. I was the closing speaker. My name printed in elegant script on the massive digital backdrop. Emily sat in the front row, her eyes beaming with pride. I had rehearsed, practiced, smoothed my note cards, but something shifted when I stepped up to the podium. I looked out at those women, many older than me, many younger, all holding something they hadn't yet put down. And suddenly, I couldn't read the words I'd written, so I closed the note cards, took a breath, and let the silence do what it needed to do. I want to tell you something I've never told anyone. Not my friends. Not my therapist. Not even my granddaughter. The room stilled. When I was 27, before I became a mother, I was told by my doctor that I had a small tumor. Benign, but it required treatment. My husband, Michael, told me we'd get through it. But he also told me maybe we shouldn't try for another child. And I agreed. I said it was fine. But it wasn't. I buried the grief. I buried the dream. And I never said out loud how deeply it broke me to stop choosing myself in service of someone else's comfort. My voice cracked, but I kept going. That wasn't the only time I disappeared to keep peace. I did it again when my kids grew cold. When Claire mocked me behind closed doors. When my son took my power and signed it away with a pen. I became an expert in quiet sacrifice. And most people applauded it. But here's what I finally learned. You can't heal in the same silence that hurt you. A collective breath swept through the room. I am no longer afraid to tell you I've been lonely. I've been angry. I've been wrong. And I have been so deeply human it hurt to keep pretending otherwise. Applause didn't come immediately. What came first were tears. Soft gasps. Chin drops. A room full of women who understood. Then, the clapping rose like thunder from the earth up. Not polite. Not performative. Soulful. Afterward, a woman in her 80s came up to me, held my hand, and said, I thought I was going to die with my story inside me. But now, I think I'll try writing it down tomorrow. Emily hugged me so hard backstage I thought my ribs might crack. Why didn't you ever tell me? Because I didn't know I needed to, I said. Until I saw all those women, holding their breath the same way I used to. If you've ever swallowed your pain to keep others comfortable, let this be a reminder. You are allowed to be honest. You are allowed to take up space. And you are allowed to speak. Please like this video, share it with someone still waiting to find her voice, and subscribe. Because in Chapter 20, I say goodbye to the past one last time. And the final thing I leave behind isn't a legacy. It's an invitation. Chapter 20, The letter I left on the table. Not every story ends with a reunion. Not every battle needs a winner. Some stories end with peace. Asterisk, if you've come this far with me, I want you to know. This chapter isn't about loss. It's about legacy, the kind you build with your hands, your voice, and your choice. Asterisk, please like this final story. Share it with every woman who's still writing her middle, and subscribe. Because what I left behind is meant for you too. It's been 2 years since I walked out of that basement. Since I found Michael's letter. Since I started telling the truth, not just to others, but to myself. The Second Bloom Foundation now reaches over 500,000 women worldwide. Our Circle chapters have spread to 7 countries. Emily co-directs the program with 2 women she met through our workshops, survivors turned leaders. And me? I'm stepping back. Not because I'm tired, but because I've finally lived everything I needed to say. I'm moving to a quiet town near the coast. Small garden. No noise. Just enough room for lavender, tea, and writing by the window. I'm not retiring. I'm rooting. I'm starting a new chapter. One that doesn't need cameras or applause. Just breath. And presence. Before I left the main office, I placed a sealed envelope on the conference room table. Inside? A letter. Not for my children. Not for Claire. Not for the ones who tried to destroy me. They already saw what survival looked like. This was for her, the woman still in the basement. The woman still afraid to speak. The woman who whispers her truth into her pillow and hopes the world won't call her bitter. To you, if you're reading this, know that I have been you. I have sat in the dark. I have believed I was crazy, too sensitive, too late. But I wasn't. And neither are you. The moment you speak, even just to yourself, is the moment you stop disappearing. Don't wait for their apology. Don't beg for understanding. You do not need their permission to become powerful. Tell your story. Someone is waiting for it like medicine. And when you're ready, we'll be here. With a seat saved just for you. With love, always Ruth Delaney. If you've ever feared it was too late to bloom, please remember, we don't grow in spite of our age. We grow because of what we've survived. Thank you for walking with me. Please like this final chapter. Share it with your daughters, your mothers, your sisters, and subscribe. Not to watch me, but to walk with me. Because the story was never just mine. It was always ours.